Good day, everyone, and welcome to our presentation on demand and supply. Today, we'll be exploring the dynamics of competitive markets, how price signals influence decisions, and what causes shifts in market equilibrium. As you can see from the image here, the fresh market tomatoes represent just one example of how supply and demand interact in real life. I'm excited to dive into these concepts with you and help deepen your understanding of these fundamental economic principles. Let's get started. When we talk about what makes a market competitive, there are a few key traits to keep in mind. First, competitive markets have many buyers and sellers, each offering standardized or very similar products. This means no one company dominates the market or controls prices on their own. Another important point is that entering or exiting the market is easy for participants, which keeps the environment dynamic and open. Prices in these markets are determined collectively, acting as signals to both buyers and sellers rather than being negotiated individually. This shared pricing mechanism ensures that the market functions efficiently and fairly for everyone involved. Prices essentially communicate the value of trade-offs for both buyers and sellers, guiding their choices in the marketplace. Here we have a demand curve that illustrates the relationship between price and quantity demanded. As you can see on the graph, when the price is high, around 100, the quantity demanded is low, only 10 units. As the price decreases, the quantity demanded increases accordingly. For example, at a price of 60, the quantity demanded rises to 30 units. This inverse relationship highlights a fundamental principle of demand. When prices drop, consumers are willing to buy more, and when prices rise, they buy less. Understanding this curve is crucial for making informed decisions about pricing and production in any market. Here we're looking at two important concepts related to changes in demand. First, we have movement along the demand curve. This happens when there's a change in the price of a good or service, which causes the quantity demanded to increase or decrease. Essentially, this is represented by moving from one point to another along the same demand curve. On the other hand, a shift of the demand curve occurs when factors other than price influence demand. This causes the entire curve to move either to the right or left, indicating a change in demand itself, not just the quantity demanded at a specific price. Understanding the difference between these two helps us analyze market behavior more accurately. When we talk about what shifts demand, two key factors come into play. First, changes in consumer income and preferences. When people have more money to spend or their tastes change, it directly affects how much they're willing to buy. For example, if incomes rise, people might opt for higher quality or more luxury products. Conversely, if tastes shift towards healthier options, demand for certain products will increase while others decline. The second factor is market and demographics. This includes the number of buyers, their expectations, and the overall demographics of the consumer base. These elements influence demand by changing the size of the market and shaping its future outlook. For instance, an aging population might increase demand for health-related products, while a growing younger demographic could boost demand for tech gadgets. You can see in the image how a typical grocery store aisle offers a variety of products tailored to diverse consumer preferences and income levels, illustrating how these factors drive demand in real life. The wallet icon represents income and preferences, while the clock icon highlights how demographic shifts over time affect market demand. Here we have a supply curve illustrating the relationship between price and quantity supplied. As you can see from the line graph, as the quantity supplied increases along the x-axis, the price also rises on the y-axis. This upward trend reflects a fundamental principle in economics. Suppliers are willing to offer more of a product at higher prices because it becomes more profitable to do so. Each point on this curve shows a specific quantity available at a corresponding price, demonstrating how supply typically responds to price changes in the market. Understanding this relationship helps us predict how shifts in price can influence the availability of goods. When we talk about movements along the supply curve, we're referring to how a change in price directly influences the quantity supplied. So, if the price goes up, producers are willing to supply more, and if it drops, they supply less. This movement happens along the same supply curve. On the other hand, shifts of the supply curve occur when non-price factors come into play. These could be changes in production costs, technology, or other external conditions. Such changes cause the entire supply curve to move either to the left or to the right, indicating a decrease or increase in supply at every price level. Understanding the difference between movements along the curve and shifts of the curve is crucial for analyzing supply dynamics accurately. Here we explore the key factors that cause shifts in supply. First, input prices play a crucial role. When the cost of materials or labor changes, it directly impacts production expenses and how much suppliers are willing to provide. Next, technology advancements can boost production efficiency, allowing suppliers to increase supply more easily. Seller expectations about future prices also matter. If sellers anticipate higher prices ahead, they might hold back inventory now, reducing current supply. Another important factor is the number of sellers in the market. More sellers typically mean greater overall supply, while fewer sellers reduce it. Taxes and subsidies also influence supply. Higher taxes raise costs and can decrease supply, whereas subsidies lower costs, encouraging suppliers to produce more. Lastly, natural or regulatory conditions such as natural disasters or new regulations can disrupt production capacity, leading to significant supply shifts. As you can see from the image, supply dynamics often directly affect industries like manufacturing, where operational changes quickly translate into shifts in what's available in the market. Understanding these factors helps us anticipate changes and respond effectively. Here we have a graph illustrating the concept of market equilibrium through the interaction of supply and demand. On the horizontal axis, we measure quantity, while the vertical axis shows the price. Notice that as quantity increases, the demand line slopes downward, indicating that buyers are willing to pay less for larger quantities. Conversely, the supply line slopes upward, meaning sellers demand higher prices to provide more goods. The point where these two lines intersect is the market equilibrium, where the quantity supplied matches the quantity demanded at a specific price. This balance ensures an efficient market where resources are allocated optimally and neither surplus nor shortage exists. Understanding this intersection helps us predict how prices and output adjust in response to changes in supply or demand. Here we explore how changes in supply and demand affect the market equilibrium. First, when demand increases, both the equilibrium price and quantity go up, creating shortages if prices remain unchanged. Next, a decrease in demand causes both price and quantity to fall, which can lead to surpluses at the original price. On the supply side, an increase in supply pushes the equilibrium price down and raises quantity, potentially resulting in surpluses if prices don't adjust. Finally, a decrease in supply raises the equilibrium price and lowers quantity, leading to shortages if prices stay the same. These shifts highlight the dynamic interplay that determines market outcomes. Thank you all for your attention throughout this module. We covered some fundamental concepts today, starting with the idea of opportunity cost, which helps us understand the trade-offs we face when making choices. We also looked at what causes shifts in demand and supply, which are crucial for understanding how markets respond to different factors. Finally, we explored equilibrium analysis, showing how prices help balance supply and demand in competitive markets. Remember, prices aren't just numbers. They're signals that coordinate decisions and determine what goods and services are exchanged as market conditions change. I hope this snapshot of the bustling market scene reminds you of how these ideas play out every day in real-life commerce. Thanks again for being here.